Hello everyone, welcome to Nanawa's channel. This is the full story of cheated on at my wedding. Now I'm the wife of a billionaire. The sun dipped low over the rolling hills of Napa Valley, casting a golden glow across the vineyard where the wedding of the year was about to unfold. The venue was a dream. White roses draped over arched trellises, crystal chandeliers sparkling, under a massive open-air tent, and a string quartet filling the air with soft romantic melodies. Guests in tailored suits and flowing dresses sipped champagne, their laughter mingling with the clink of glasses. At the center of it all was Emily Harper, the bride, radiant in a custom lace gown that hugged her curves and trailed behind her, like a whisper of elegance. Her chestnut hair was swept into an updo, a delicate tiara catching the light. She stood in the bridal suite, staring at her reflection, her heart pounding with anticipation. Today, she thought, was the start of her forever. Emily had spent months planning this day with her fiancé, Ethan Caldwell. He was charming, ambitious, the kind of guy who could light up a room with his smile. They'd met in college, bonded over late-night study sessions and dreams of building a life together. Ethan had proposed on a snowy night in Chicago, down on one knee in Millennium Park, and Emily had said yes before he'd even finished the question. Now, at 27, she was about to become Mrs. Caldwell, and the thought made her dizzy with joy. She imagined their future, holidays with their kids, cozy Sundays, growing old together. It was perfect. Too perfect, maybe. The clock ticked closer to the ceremony. Emily's maid of honor, her best friend Sarah, fussed over her veil, tears in her eyes. "You look like a freaking princess, Em," Sarah said, squeezing her hand. Emily laughed, nerves bubbling up. "I just want to see Ethan. Is he ready?" Sarah nodded, darting out to check on the groom. The guests were seated now, the officiant waiting at the altar. Emily took a deep breath, clutching her bouquet of peonies. This was it. But minutes passed and Sarah didn't return. The quartet's music looped, the notes starting to feel repetitive. A murmur rippled through the crowd outside. Emily's stomach twisted. She stepped out of the suite, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor of the venue's grand hallway. That's when she saw Sarah running toward her, face pale, eyes wide with panic. I don't know how to say this," Sarah stammered, her voice shaking. Emily's heart dropped. "What's wrong? Where's Ethan?" Sarah hesitated, then grabbed Emily's arm. "He's gone. He left. Someone saw him drive off with Jessica." The name hit Emily like a slap. Jessica. Ethan's ex-girlfriend from college. The one he'd sworn was just a friend when she'd texted him late at night. The one Emily had worried about, only for Ethan to call her paranoid. "No," Emily whispered, shaking her head. "No, that's not possible. He wouldn't." But Sarah's tears confirmed it. Ethan had abandoned her, minutes before their vows, running off with his ex. The world tilted. Emily stumbled back, her gown catching on the floor. Guests were staring now, their whispers slicing through the air like knives. What's happening? Where's the groom? Did he really leave her? Emily's parents rushed to her side, her mom's face etched with worry, her dad's jaw tight with anger. But Emily barely registered them. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the pitying looks, and ran to the altar, as if Ethan might magically appear. He didn't. The altar was empty, the officiant shifting awkwardly. Her bouquet slipped from her hands, petals scattering on the ground. She collapsed onto the steps, the weight of her dress pulling her down. Tears streamed down her face, smudging her mascara, pooling with the foundation she'd spent hours perfecting. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, some sympathetic, others cruel. Phones were out, recording her humiliation. Emily's chest heaved as she sobbed. The dream of her perfect day shattered. Ethan hadn't just left her. He'd betrayed her in front of everyone she loved, everyone who mattered. She was the runaway bride, but not by choice. And as the cameras flashed and the whispers grew, Emily knew this moment would haunt her forever. The days after the wedding that never was blurred into a nightmare Emily couldn't wake from. Napa Valley's golden hills faded into the rear view mirror as she drove back to her Chicago apartment, the weight of her unworn wedding ring heavy in her purse. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, texts from concerned friends, voicemails from her mom, and notifications from social media that she didn't dare open. By the time she collapsed onto her couch, the internet had already turned her heartbreak into a spectacle. "Runaway groom ditches bride at altar," screamed one headline. A blurry video of her sobbing in her wedding dress racked up thousands of views on TikTok. Comments poured in, "She must have done something to deserve it. Who gets left like that? Embarrassing." Emily's cheeks burned as she scrolled, each word a fresh cut. Her family didn't help. At a tense dinner, her aunt clucked, "You should have seen the signs, Emily. Men don't just leave for no reason." Her cousin, scrolling through Instagram, snorted at a meme of a bride crying with Ethan's face photoshopped onto a cartoon villain. Even her dad, usually her rock, muttered, "I knew that boy wasn't good enough." Nobody asked how she was. Nobody hugged her. It was as if her pain was a stain they didn't want to touch. Emily felt like a ghost in her own life, invisible yet, judged by everyone. Nights were the worst. Alone in her apartment, she replayed every moment with Ethan. The late-night calls with Jessica he'd brushed off as nothing. The way he'd dodged questions about his past. Had she been blind? Stupid? The questions gnawed at her, keeping her awake until dawn. She stopped eating, her reflection in the mirror growing gaunt. Her job as a marketing assistant suffered. She missed deadlines, zoned out in meetings. Her boss pulled her aside, voice sharp. "Get it together, Emily. This is a workplace, not a soap opera." The world seemed to agree. Her pain was her fault and she wasn't allowed to grieve. But one night, staring at a bottle of wine she hadn't touched, something shifted. Emily caught her reflection in the dark window. Tear-streaked, yes, but still her. She wasn't this broken thing the world saw. She was Emily Harper, the girl who'd aced her finals while working 2 jobs, who'd planned a wedding down to the napkin folds. Ethan didn't get to define her. Neither did the internet. "I'm not allowed to fall apart," she whispered, the words a vow. She dumped the wine down the sink, grabbed her laptop, and started searching for a way out. Chicago was suffocating, every corner tied to memories of Ethan. She needed a fresh start, somewhere nobody knew her as the abandoned bride. She found a business school in Seattle offering a part-time MBA program, perfect for someone rebuilding from scratch. With her savings and a small loan, she packed her life into a suitcase, sublet her apartment, and bought a one-way ticket. As the plane lifted off, Lake Michigan shrinking below, Emily felt a flicker of something she hadn't in weeks. Hope. Seattle was a shock to the system. Gray skies, coffee shops on every corner, and a city that didn't care about her past. She rented a tiny studio, the kind with a leaky faucet and a view of a brick wall, but it was hers. Classes started, and the grind was brutal. Microeconomics, late-night study groups, and a part-time job at a startup to pay the bills. Her classmates were sharp, driven, and didn't ask personal questions. For the first time, Emily felt like she could breathe. She threw herself into her studies, her notes filled with ideas for a tech platform she'd been dreaming up, a tool to help small businesses market themselves online. It was a spark, a purpose. As she walked to her first class, rain misting her face, Emily made a promise. She'd rewrite her story. Not for Ethan, not for the haters online, but for herself. She wasn't just surviving, she was starting over. And this time, nobody would break her. Seattle's rain was relentless, but Emily Harper thrived in its gray embrace. 3 years into her new life, the city had become her crucible, forging her into someone she barely recognized, in the best way. Her MBA program was a beast, demanding, late nights poring over case studies and group projects that tested her patience. By day, she worked at a scrappy tech startup, crafting social media campaigns for pennies. By night, she chipped away at her own project, a platform called Grow Easy, designed to help small businesses automate their marketing. It was her baby, born from countless coffee-fueled hours in her cramped studio apartment, where the radiator hissed and the Wi-Fi was spotty. Every line of code, every pitch deck slide was a brick in the foundation of her new self. The grind wasn't glamorous. Emily survived on instant noodles and thrift store sweaters, her bank account teetering on the edge of zero. There were moments she wanted to quit, like when her laptop crashed, wiping out a week's work, or when a professor tore apart her business plan in front of the class. "You're dreaming too big, Ms. Harper," he'd said, smirking. She'd bitten her tongue, but his words lit a fire. She wasn't dreaming too big. She was dreaming just right. Failure wasn't an option, not after Ethan, not after the world had laughed at her tears. She taped a note to her mirror. "You are enough." It was her mantra, her shield against doubt. Her classmates noticed her drive. They called her the machine, half in awe, half in jest. Emily didn't mind. She'd learned to tune out the noise, social media, gossip, even her family's skeptical calls. "Are you sure you can handle this?" her mom would ask. Emily always changed the subject. She wasn't sure, not always, but she'd fake it until she made it. And slowly, she was making it. Grow Easy's prototype caught the eye of a local incubator, earning her a small grant. She used it to hire a coder, then a designer. Her pitch won a university competition, landing her a mentor who believed in her vision. Piece by piece, her dream was taking shape. One rainy evening, at a networking event in a sleek downtown co-working space, Emily met him. She was pitching Grow Easy to a room of investors, her voice steady despite her nerves. Her slides were sharp, her data tighter than ever. When she finished, a man approached her, his presence quiet but commanding. He was young, maybe early 30s, tall with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see through the room's buzz. "That was impressive," he said, handing her a card. "I'm Lucas Reed. Let's talk about scaling your platform." His tone was professional, but there was a warmth in his smile that threw her off. She mumbled a thank you, tucking the card away. Lucas wasn't what she expected. Over coffee meetings, she learned he was a tech prodigy, a self-made CEO who'd built a global logistics empire from nothing, but he didn't flaunt it. He listened, asking questions about her project with genuine curiosity. Unlike the slick investors she'd met, Lucas was grounded, almost humble. He challenged her ideas, but not to tear her down, to make them better. "You've got something special here," he told her once, leaning across a cafe table. "Don't let anyone dim your light." Emily felt a spark, not romantic, not yet, but of respect. He saw her, not as the abandoned bride, but as a woman with a future. Their meetings became regular, a mix of business and something deeper. Lucas shared stories of his own struggles, growing up poor, fighting for every opportunity. Emily opened up about her past, hesitant at first, but his quiet strength made it easy. There was no rush, no pressure, just a connection growing roots. As Grow Easy gained traction, Emily stood taller, her confidence no longer an act. She was rewriting her story, not just for herself, but for the world to see. And maybe, just maybe, Lucas was part of that story too. Emily Harper stood in front of a floor-length mirror in a quiet Seattle loft, her reflection softer than she remembered. The dress was simple, ivory silk, flowing like water, no heavy lace, or glittering tiara this time. Her hair fell in loose waves, a single daisy tucked behind her ear. At 32, she was a bride again, but this wasn't the spectacle of Napa Valley. This was real. Lucas Reed, the man who'd seen her at her rawest and believed in her anyway, stood waiting downstairs. Their wedding was small, just 20 guests, close, friends and family, in a sunlit space with exposed brick and wildflowers on every table. Emily's heart fluttered, not with nerves but with certainty. She was ready. The past 2 years with Lucas had been a revelation. What started as coffee meetings about Grow Easy grew into late-night talks about life, loss, and dreams. Lucas was different from anyone she'd known. He was a billionaire CEO, yes, his logistics empire spanned continents, but he never acted like it. He'd show up to her tiny apartment with takeout, unbothered by the leaky faucet, and listen as she rambled about her startup. He celebrated her wins, like when Grow Easy secured its first major client, and held her hand through setbacks, like when an investor pulled out. "You're unstoppable," he'd say, his voice steady, and Emily started to believe it. Their love wasn't a whirlwind. It was a slow burn built on trust. Lucas knew about Ethan, about the wedding that broke her. He never pushed her to move faster than she was ready for. When he proposed, it was on a rainy hike in the Cascades, both of them muddy and laughing. No grand gesture, just a quiet question. "Will you build a life with me?" Emily had cried. Not from pain, but from joy. She said yes, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Lucas didn't care about her past. He loved the woman she'd become, fierce, flawed, and whole. The wedding was their story in every detail. Emily's mom, tearful but proud, helped plan it. Sarah, her maid of honor again, vetoed anything too flashy. "No chandeliers," she'd teased. Lucas's sister baked the cake, a lemon vanilla masterpiece. The vows were handwritten. Emily promised to challenge Lucas as much as he challenged her. He vowed to be her safe harbor, always. As they exchanged rings, sunlight streamed through the loft's windows, and Emily felt something she hadn't in years: peace. She wasn't marrying a billionaire for his money or status. She was marrying Lucas for his heart. As Emily walked down the aisle, her dad at her side, she saw Lucas waiting. His suit was tailored, but his smile was pure, unguarded. The guests faded away, her mom's sniffles, Sarah's thumbs up. It was just them. When they kissed, the room erupted in cheers, but Emily barely heard it. Later, as they danced to a film score, Lucas whispered, "You're my everything." Emily smiled, her cheek against his. She'd rebuilt her life from ashes, and now she was unstoppable. Grow Easy was thriving now, with a small team and clients across the West Coast. Emily had graduated with her MBA, her name starting to appear in tech blogs. Lucas was her biggest cheerleader, but he never overshadowed her. Their partnership was equal, rooted in respect. After the wedding, they'd honeymoon in a quiet cabin in Montana, but first they had a big event to attend, a gala in San Francisco, hosted by Lucas's company. It was a chance to showcase Grow Easy to industry giants, and Emily was ready to shine. Lucas had grinned when she picked out her dress, a sleek emerald gown that made her feel like a queen. "You're going to steal the show," he'd said, kissing her forehead. The gala loomed, a glittering stage for their next chapter. Emily didn't know who'd be there, but she felt ready for anything, stronger, wiser, and loved. She glanced at her new ring, a simple band that meant more than any diamond. Whatever came next, she'd face it with Lucas by her side. The San Francisco Gala was a glittering affair, the kind of event where power and ambition collided under chandeliers. The ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel buzzed with tech moguls, venture capitalists, and industry rising stars, all clad in tuxedos and gowns that screamed wealth. Emily Harper Reed stepped into the room on Lucas's arm, her emerald gown catching the light like a beacon. Her heart raced, not from nerves but from pride. Grow Easy was being honored tonight, her startup named a breakout innovator by Lucas's company. At 32, she stood tall, no longer the broken bride of 5 years ago. Lucas squeezed her hand, his eyes warm. "Ready to own this?" he whispered. Emily smiled. Born ready. They moved through the crowd, Lucas's presence parting the sea of suits. He was in his element, shaking hands, trading quips with CEOs, but his focus stayed on Emily. She matched him stride for stride, pitching Grow Easy to execs with a confidence that felt hard-earned. Her platform was no longer a dream. It had clients in 10 states, a growing team, and buzz in Forbes. Tonight was her chance to secure a major partnership, and she was locked in. The stage awaited, where she and Lucas would give a joint speech. But as she scanned the room, her breath caught. There, near the bar, was a face she'd never forget. Ethan Caldwell looked older, his boyish charm dulled by time. His suit was off the rack, his posture slouched as he handed a drink to a middle-aged man in a better suit. Emily's stomach twisted. Lucas's company employed thousands. She'd never imagined Ethan would be one of them, let alone a low-level staffer. He hadn't seen her yet, but his eyes darted nervously as if he sensed the weight of the moment. Emily's mind flashed to Napa, to her tears staining her wedding dress, to the headlines that mocked her. For a split second, she was that girl. Again. Then Lucas's hand brushed her back, grounding her. She wasn't that girl. Not anymore. Ethan's gaze finally landed on her, and his face froze. His eyes widened, flickering from her gown to Lucas, then to the stage where their names glowed on a massive screen. Lucas Reed, CEO, and Emily Harper Reed, founder of Grow Easy. He looked like he'd been punched. Emily held his stare, her expression calm, almost serene. She didn't need to gloat. Her presence was enough. Lucas, unaware of the silent drama, guided her toward the stage. The crowd parted, cameras flashing. Emily felt Ethan's eyes burning into her back, but she didn't look back. She had nothing to prove to him. On stage, Lucas spoke first, his voice commanding as he praised innovation and introduced Grow Easy. Then it was Emily's turn. She stepped to the mic, the spotlight warm on her face. 5 years ago, I thought my story was written, she began, her voice steady. But I learned you can rewrite your own ending. Grow Easy isn't just a platform, it's proof that you can rise from nothing and build something unstoppable. The room erupted in applause. Lucas beamed, his pride palpable. Emily's eyes flicked to Ethan, now at the edge of the crowd. His face was a mix of shock and shame, his shoulders hunched. She smiled faintly, not for him, but for herself. After the speech, Lucas stayed by her side as they mingled. Emily felt invincible, her laughter genuine as she charmed investors. Ethan lingered in her peripheral vision, never approaching but always watching. She didn't care. This was her night, her victory. Lucas leaned in, whispering, "You were incredible up there." She kissed his cheek, her ring glinting. "Couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head. "This is all you, Em." As the gala wound down, Emily knew Ethan would try to speak to her. She braced herself, not for pain, but for closure. She'd come too far to let him dim her light. Tonight, she wasn't the abandoned bride. She was Emily Harper Reed, a force, a founder, a wife, loved fiercely, and no ghost from her past could change that. The gala's energy was winding down, the clink of champagne glasses softer now, the crowd thinning as San Francisco's elite drifted toward the exits. Emily Harper Reed stood near the edge of the Fairmont's ballroom, her emerald gown still radiant under the dimming chandeliers. Lucas was across the room, wrapping up a conversation with a board member, his easy laugh carrying over the hum. Emily's speech for Grow Easy had been the night's highlight, securing handshakes and promises of partnerships. She felt untouchable, her heart full, until she saw Ethan Caldwell weaving through the crowd, heading straight for her. He looked smaller than she remembered, his cheap suit creased, his eyes darting like a man out of his depth. 5 years ago, he'd been the center of her world, his betrayal shattering her. Now he was just a shadow, a junior staffer in her husband's empire. Ethan stopped a few feet away, hands fidgeting. "Emily," he started, voice low. "Can we talk?" She raised an eyebrow, her expression cool but not cruel. She'd known this moment was coming. "Sure," she said, crossing her arms. "Talk." Ethan cleared his throat, glancing around as if afraid someone might overhear. I owe you an apology. What I did back then, leaving you like that, it was a mistake. I was young, stupid. Jessica and we didn't even last a year." His words tumbled out, rehearsed, but shaky. Emily stayed silent, letting him squirm. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Seeing you tonight, with him, with all this you've done, incredible things, I'm proud of you, Em." The old nickname stung, but only for a second. He hesitated, then added, "I'm struggling, you know. This job's tough, and I was hoping maybe you could put in a word, help me get a better role." Emily almost laughed. The audacity. She tilted her head, studying him. His face held a flicker of the charm that once fooled her, but it was hollow now, desperate. She thought of the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, the headlines that branded her a fool, the years she'd clawed her way back. Ethan hadn't just left her, he'd left her to drown. And now he wanted her help. She took a slow breath, her voice steady when she spoke. "Ethan, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I don't carry grudges. They're too heavy." His eyes lit up, misreading her, but she raised a hand. "But don't mistake forgiveness for forgetting. I thank you, actually. If you hadn't walked away, I wouldn't be who I am today. I built this life without you, and I don't owe you a piece of it. Ethan's face fell, his mouth opening, then closing. Before he could respond, Lucas appeared at Emily's side, his hand resting lightly on her back. "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone calm but protective. Emily smiled, leaning into him. "Perfect," she said, her eyes never leaving Ethan's. He mumbled something incoherent, then backed away, disappearing into the crowd. Emily felt no anger, no need to twist the knife. Her success, her company, her marriage, her peace, was the sharpest reply she could give. As the gala ended, Emily and Lucas stepped out into the cool San Francisco night, the city lights twinkling below. He pulled her close, his breath warm against her ear. "You were a rock star tonight," he said. She laughed, the sound light, free. "Couldn't have done it without you." They walked to their car, her heels clicking on the pavement, his arm around her. Ethan's face lingered in her mind, his regret a faint echo, but it didn't pull her back. She glanced at Lucas, his profile strong in the moonlight, and felt a rush of gratitude. This was her life now. Emily didn't need revenge. Her story. Grow Easy's rise, her love with Lucas, her unshakable strength, was her victory. As they drove off, the city fading behind them, she looked forward, not back. Ethan could watch from the sidelines, but she was already miles ahead, living a life he'd never touch, and that was enough.